All right, guys, let's get this prep spotlight going. As always, brought to you by Jacobs Insurance. Let's bring on Jason Hutton, sports director over at Fox 17. He always joins us on the Prep Pigskin preview and gives us a good look at all those teams over on West Michigan. A lot of powerhouse teams that us Corunna fans are keeping an eye on a little bit more this season. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let's start out there. I mean, we don't have to beat around the bush. Let's start out there. D5, our Corunna Cavaliers are making a lot of noise. Just won the Flint Metro League outright. Looking like a pretty complete team, looking like a really good team that has a legit shot to make a run to Ford Field. But we know two of those teams up at the top over there in West Michigan, West Catholic and Catholic Central, are kind of the cream of the crop in D5, right? Maybe for our listeners who are big Corunna fans that maybe don't know much about those teams, or if there's another team or two in D5, maybe give our listeners who are Corunna fans something that they should think about come playoff time.
Well, you're right. I mean, Grand Rapids Catholic Central and West Catholic are outstanding, and they're going to play probably sooner rather than later in the playoffs. I think Division 5 is really strong around here. I mean, we've got some really good teams. I mean, you guys are Corunna guys. I'm a Belding guy. Belding's having a good season. They're 7-1. I think they're really good. If I'm being honest, please, if anyone's a Belding fan, don't listen to this. I don't think they're on West Catholic or Catholic Central's level, if I'm just being honest. I just think those two teams are so good. And I went into the season thinking Grand Rapids Catholic Central was the best team in the state in Division 5. And I still probably feel that way, but I was high on West Catholic coming into the season, and I'm even higher on them right now. I mean, they are just playing so well. I saw them week 3 at Coopersville. They won on a field goal in the final play of the game. Coopersville's really good. They're huge. They're a D3 school. But I don't even think West Catholic played their best game that night, and they've played almost flawless since then. I think they're really good. This is such a good rivalry, and they don't play. I mean, since the realignment in the OK Conference after 2019, they used to be in the OK Blue together, and then Catholic Central went to the Gold. They played the playoffs 2 years ago. That was not a great West Catholic team, and Grand Rapids Catholic Central ran them off the field. I mean, it was not competitive. When they play here in a couple weeks, I think it's going to be a game for the ages, and I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people there. So including me. So I'm really looking forward to it. Both teams good all around. Grand Rapids Catholic Central is a throwing team. I mean, if you go back over the years, winning their state championships, they throw the football. They have a very good quarterback. Their wide receiver group is amazing. But their running back is, in my opinion, the best player in the area. He had 32 carries, 340 yards against South Christian on Friday night, and he is a beast. And he's a 3-year starter at corner, Kellen Russell Dixon. I mean, just outstanding. And you talk about West Catholic, they lose Timmy Kloska, right? They win the state championship last year with Timmy. He was amazing. He's at Army now. But they've got a guy named Charlie DeBrune who's taken over for him, who was a starter at linebacker last year, still a starter at linebacker. He's a different type of runner from Timmy. He's not just going to run you over, but he can if he has to. He's really fast. I think both teams are really good. And if you want to get into this, like I had been saying since early in the year that West Catholic and Catholic Central is the state championship game when it happens. Maybe it will be, but I took note of Corunna when they beat Goodrich. That was when I was like, well, here we go. Maybe we've got another contender here in Division 5. I've also had my eye on Pontiac Notre Dame Prep all year when they blew out Hastings early in the year, because Hastings is a good team. So, and they blew out Gladwin. I mean, nobody has slowed down Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. Now, I'm not here to tell you that anybody they played is as good as Corunna or Catholic Central or West Catholic, but I think we have a clear top 4, in my opinion, in the state in Division 5.
Is that the division that you're kind of circling as maybe the top division in all the state? I know Division 4 has some good teams. South Christian, one of them you just mentioned. Do you think that's the premier division in the state this year?
Yeah, you mean in terms of like competition and stuff? Like, I don't think
that ball game type thing.
Yeah, I don't think the teams in Division 5 are necessarily better than like 1 and 2.
Right.
Yeah, in terms of the amount of teams, and when I talk about those 4 right there, I think that Division 1 is going to be really interesting if and when we can get to Belleville and Rockford. Who knows what will happen? Rockford hasn't really done it in the playoffs, so I don't know if it'll happen, but I think that could be really interesting. Division 2, I'm really high in Division 2 as well, especially on our side of the state when we've got Caledonia and Byron Center and Muskegon and Mona Shores, and the Portage schools are both really good. I mean, I'm really excited about Division 2. So I would put 5 and 2 from where I sit, pretty close.
Jason, in your area, obviously with the good teams that the west side of the state always has, you got to have good coaches. Just throw out a couple names of some of the grizzled veterans and maybe some of the younger coaches coming up that you're really impressed with.
Well, can't not be impressed with John Shillito at Zeeland West. I know the Ducks have just lost 2 in a row after their 6-0 start, but their schedule did them no favors, putting Muskegon and Mona Shores back to back. I mean, nobody since Matt Koziak took over at Mona Shores and turned it into a state power, nobody has done well playing Muskegon and Mona Shores in back-to-back weeks. So Zeeland West loses by 6 and 8 points in back-to-back weeks to Muskegon and Mona Shores. I think Zeeland West has a chance to get there in Division III. I really do. Forest Hill Central's really good too. We'll see if they collide here in a few weeks. But you have to start with John Shillito when you talk about guys that have been doing it for a very long time. He's the only coach Zeeland West has ever had. He got to the Silver Dome at both Orchard View and Detroit Catholic Central. I mean, the guy's amazing. When you talk about young, I mean, we have a lot of younger coaches, right? The kind of veteran guys have kind of moved on from our area, and we got a lot of younger coaches. I mean, Brent Cummings, shout out. He and I went to Belding together. He's doing a great job at Rockford. I love the Rams and I love Brent, but we got to see them win in the playoffs. It just hasn't happened. But this team, I tell you what, they're special. It's a really good team. So we'll see there. But Landon Grove at West Catholic, we talked about West Catholic, how good they are. I mean, Landon Grove's a really good coach. Just his second year. He's not even 30 years old yet. I don't know how old he is. He's in his late 20s.
Tony and Eve's coaching tree.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a really good coach. I mean, they are so organized at West Catholic and really, really good. And I guess if we go back to the veteran guys, Todd Colster at Graham Catholic Central would have to now fit into the veteran guys category. He's one of the guys I think is the best coaches I've seen around here. He's just a really, really good coach. And we're so lucky in this side of the state. We have so many really, really good coaches.
One of those programs I want to ask you about is both basketball and football. They've been kind of on the comeback a little bit. Grand Rapids South Christian, they're Division IV. I mean, Taylor Johnson, he's their basketball coach. I think he's one hell of a coach. They're impressive. But what really impresses me about that program, and I'm curious why you think they've really kind of come into rounded back into form for what they were in the early 2000s. I mean, Carson Vees, Jake Vermas, Jake DeHaan, 3 guys that are stud basketball players and football players. Why is this program kind of coming back? Why do you think?
Well, I think it's what you just said. I mean, it's those kids. I mean, they've always had really good kids at South Christian. They always have really good coaches. I mean, you can go down the list of the guys that they've had in both sports, and they've all been really good. And South has made their runs in both football and basketball. Ken Hiskus, I mean, amazing runs at South Christian when he was the head coach there, and he had guys like David Kuhl and some really good players. So, but it's the kids. I mean, no coach wins without really good players. Right. And you talk about Carson Viss and Jake Vermas and Jake DeHaan, who they had last year, who's now at Toledo playing football. They have really good kids, and then you put it together with the coaches. And sometimes those private schools, you wonder about the community. They have outstanding community at South Christian too. It's really impressive what they're doing there. By the way, I came up with this last week. Tell me if it's any good. So Vermas and Viss, I mean, they're both outstanding, right? So can I call them the Killer V's? Is that terrible?
The Killer V's. I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
Vermas is wideout, right? Is that right?
Vermas is a wideout, yeah. Okay. And he plays corner.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's already been used before. I mean, maybe, I don't know if they have like a local radio station. That sounds like something Ted would come up for one of his radio calls.
There you go. Yeah. Feel free to use it.
Take it.
Take it. I was going to ask you, Jason. I mean, you've been laying it out. Rockford, all the other teams, West Catholic, Catholic Central, all the other teams that you're talking about. You brought up Muskegon a lot in your prep pigskin preview. So maybe there's still one. Are there other teams? If you had to make your grand, we're one game away from the playoffs right now. What teams do you think will make a run to Ford Field from West Michigan? Do you think this is the year that Rockford gets it done in the playoffs? Muskegon, one of those Catholic schools. If you had to pick right now, if you're allowed to, are you allowed to make a pick?
Sure. I can handle it. So I'll be shocked if we're not there in Division 5. I'm shocked. I mean, I think it'll be the Catholic Central West Catholic winner. But there's lots of good teams, as we already touched on. Division 4 is really interesting to me. I wouldn't rule out South Christian. I just saw they lost to Catholic Central on Friday night, 21-12. I was really impressed, especially with Carson Viss at quarterback. I mean, he's dynamic. And when you get into the playoffs, they're not going to play Grand Rapids Catholic Central. They're not going to play East Grand Rapids, who they lost to back in week 2. I think they still have a chance in Division 4, but we're pretty good in Division 4 too. Whitehall is a team that I think really has a chance. They're undefeated. Now, they're not playing quite the schedule that South Christian is when they get in their league. But, that's a big deal for Whitehall. They were Division 5, but they opted up to 4. Now, some of that probably is to avoid Catholic Central and West Catholic, but they want it South Christian again because they lost by 7 to South Christian in the regional final last year, and they feel like they can get over that hump. And I think Portland is another team. We count them as part of our viewing area. I know they're kind of between Grand Rapids and Lansing. I think Portland's really good. So I think I'm interested in how the bracket falls in D4. And I think one of those three teams, if not two, we'll see if Portland goes east in the bracket, get to the finals in Division 4. I know Goodrich is going to be a team that can make some noise in Division 4 as well. And then Division 3, we kind of touched on. Zealand West, Forest Central, even Coopersville. We're going to see Coopersville this week against Allendale. I think Coopersville's really good in Division 3. East Grand Rapids beat South Christian. So Division 3 will be fun to watch. I do think Muskegon, if I had to pick right now, would be the D2 team to get to Fort Field, but there are so many good teams they're going to have to buy, and they're going to be Mona Shores again in the district, right? Probably Reese Puffer maybe again in the district. It's not going to be easy. And then they get to a regional against one of the Portage schools or Caledonia or Byron Center. It's going to be tough, but I would, if I had to pick now, say Muskegon will get there. And then the $1 million question is, well, will this be the year Rockford does it? I mean, if there ever was going to be one, I would think it would be this year. They really have everything. But, they have not done well in the playoffs the last few years, so we're going to have to see it.
Yep.
Well, everybody knows that we're Corunna Cavaliers, and, Snooze, who's pretty good on his predictions, has us going east, so we can stay away from the west side. So that's good for us. Little factoid for you, Jason. I mean, take it for what you will. Corunna, every single game, they've had a running clock. 8 straight games. Have you ever heard of that before? I don't know what it says. It's just a stat, but...
Yeah, the Grand Rapids Catholic Central team 2 years ago that won the state championship. They had a running clock in every game until the state final, and they played Frankenmuth. And I thought they were going to put the running clock on Frankenmuth in the state final, and they didn't. They did not. They won the game, but they won by like 28 or 27 or something. There was never a running clock in the game. So it doesn't happen often. And it's always interesting, right? I mean, when you're that good, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then you're going to get into a game at some point where you're going to need to play in the fourth quarter. And if your starters haven't played in the fourth quarter, how are they going to respond? That's where we were with Grand Rapids Catholic Central just this last Friday, because they had played 7 games, all running clocks. Now, they lost the first one to Loyola Academy out of Illinois, one of the biggest schools in the state of Illinois, 45-7. But then they won 6 in a row, all in running clocks. So how were they going to respond when they got in a fourth quarter game with South Christian? And they did pretty well. They won the game 21-12. They handled it. First game, their starters had to play all 4 quarters. So that'll be interesting. But Corunna's been so impressive. You talked about the snooze to you maps. I watch those just like you guys do. Belding, being a Belding guy, they're always watching when are they going to play West Catholic and Catholic Central. And a few weeks ago, they had Belding in the Corunna district.
They did.
Brett Makita and I do the radio show, and I go, we got to be careful what we wish for here. Belding's trying to avoid Catholic Central, West Catholic. And this was the week after Corunna had put it on Goodrich.
Right.
I was like, now Belding's in the – it doesn't matter where you go in Division 5, you're going to play somebody really, really good.
Well, by the way, I just got to say thanks for answering that question, because I've been asked by people about the running clock thing. So great answer, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I would guess it's probably happened somewhere else before. That was the one that was at the top of my mind. Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive, even through the playoffs, to do it even through the playoffs. And I mean, Ted, you're probably being asked by Corunna fans, Ted.
Of course.
So, and then knowing that Catholic Central might be an opponent for Corunna down the line, that'll be a nice little nugget.
It's a mental note.
Yep. Stepping away from high school just for a minute. The Grand Valley Ferris game this past Saturday was a great one. I don't know if you literally were there, but I know you guys probably had somebody there. Is Ferris going to make a run? I know they lost to Grand Valley. They're going to go back to back to back. Is this a year that Grand Valley gets back up there? Or what do you think of that game over there in Allendale?
I was not at it myself. I watched it. It was on television here locally. So I watched the whole game. I was shocked that it was 35-0. And then it got to 35-28. Boy, what a tough question. I'll tell you this. Last year when Grand Valley won the regular season game, I was sure that Grand Valley beat them in the playoffs, and they didn't. So I'm not going to fall for that again. I figured Tony Anise will figure it out, and Ferris will win the playoff game. Who knows what'll happen. It was impressive showing from Grand Valley and Scott Wooster in his first year. That was a huge game, and they played really, really well. And you have to love Grand Valley. I mean, they are really good. But I know that Ferris is they're gonna get things figured out. We're gonna see this game in Allendale in the playoffs, and I'll pick Ferris just because of my mistake last year, and I won't fall for it. But I'll probably be wrong again because I'm always wrong.
One last question for me. And speaking of Grand Valley, the biggest play of the game was Kyle Knott making a spectacular one-handed grab. What do you remember about him back in the Jennison days when he was a quarterback, right?
Yeah. He was phenomenal. Like, just do this. Go to Michigan-football.com and go to Jennison's year-by-year results. And look at the 2 years they were really good out of the last 15. That's Kyle Knott's junior and senior year. And you just tell me what's going on. I mean, the guy was amazing as a quarterback. He was the fastest guy on the field. I mean, his agility, he was amazing. I remember Rob Zeitman, the head coach there, amazing coach, great dude. He used to say this about Corunna: he's a wow. And that's the best way I can describe him. I mean, the guy just makes you say, wow, when you watch play. And then he throws up that one-handed catch in the Ferris game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, little mid-Michigan note there. The quarterback, Avery Moore, out of New Lothrop, tossed him that ball. So kudos to him.
And that dude, it was the difference in the regular season last year against Ferris, and in this game too. You know, Ferris has made a living off of running with the quarterback, right? Bringing Carson Goldgreen as their second quarterback and running it. Grand Valley started doing that last year with Avery Moore. They beat Ferris in the regular season doing it, and then Moore has a huge game a couple days ago, and they win again because of him. He's really special.
He is.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jason, I mean, it's been awesome. You've taken the time out to join us. We really appreciate it. Before we let you go, tell our listeners best spot to catch up with you, probably on the socials if they can't get the Grand Rapids Fox 17 station.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I always enjoy talking to you guys. So X now, right? They call it. So I'm JHut5 on X. We also have Fox 17 Blitz on X as well. Facebook, Jason Hutton, Fox 17. Instagram, JHut5555. I don't know, some ridiculous number of fives, because by the time I got around to get on Instagram, all the good handles were taken. And I'm on TikTok now, so you young guys probably know about that. So I'm trying that thing too. So yeah, lots of fun. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see a Corunna down there at Fort Field.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you.
Yeah,
all right.
Definitely.
All right, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcast, we've had 3 generations: Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
All right, guys. Always really fun talking with Jason. He's always part of our Prep Pigskin preview, so that was good stuff. And, you know, here locally, let's talk about a few things. We kind of set it up in the open. Corunna just absolutely dominated Fenton 57-7. They came right out of the gates on fire. Jaden Eddington finished with 141 yards, couple touchdowns, but he basically had every carry on that first drive. I think it was only 4 or 5 carries and took it to the house. Wyatt Bauer, the man that really makes it all happen, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, including a 57 41-yarder. Throw some other names out that we don't always talk about. Dane Zeman was the defensive ringleader with 7 tackles, 4 for losses, and 2 sacks. And how about Braden Anderjack? Normally we talk about him and his kicking, but he's out there on defense, picked off a pass, had 6 extra points. He had a 2-point conversion on a muff snap. And then Parker Isham, they were solid in all aspects, had a 38-yard punt return for 6. Just again, total domination. And how about the Stars division? They went 5-1 in crossovers. The only Stripes win was Holly over Clio. I mean, the smaller schools just dominated the Flint Metro League this year.
You gotta love that, right?
Yeah.
Small school pride. I mean, here's the thing with that I've noticed just in our line of work, and obviously we talk about high school football all the time and that sort of thing, is of all the divisions, Division 5 is the one that's getting a lot of the buzz. It's not Division 1, it's not Division 2, it's not 3, it's not 4, it's Division 5. And I mean, it's on the smaller side of all the schools in the state out of 8 divisions. I mean, how cool is that? And then Corunna happens to be right in the mix of it.
I think it's because, I mean, you guys definitely know just as well or better than I do. It seems like D5 is up for grabs. Yeah, like, Jason was talking about West Catholic and Catholic Central. They're kind of the cream of the crop in D5. Frankenmuth, obviously, Gladwin is the defending champs. But otherwise, like, it's kind of up for grabs. Some of these other divisions, I feel like it's almost a foregone conclusion who's going to win it. You got Belleville, Rockford, some of these other teams that are like, they're just probably going to run away with it. D5, I mean, you could probably go down to like the 5th or 6th seed and say that they have a legit shot to win it. So yeah, again, maybe those Catholic schools over in Grand Rapids are maybe the favorites, but there's no reason that Corunna can't win it. I mean, we were talking about it before we started recording. Of course, we're very, very proud Corunna alums, but this isn't just bias. I mean, at this point, 8 games into the season, with the numbers they're putting up, the wins that they have, running clock every single game. I mean, that I would be curious to, I don't know who we could snooze to you. I don't know if he'd be the guy or, someone at the MHSA. Has that ever happened? I mean, if they do it again on Friday against Armada, make a running clock, all 9 regular season games, running clock. Has that ever happened? I'm sure it has, maybe at some point, but I'm just trying to say at this point, what they've done, we're not just slappies. This is a legitimate state title contender.
No, and that's what was cool about Saturday night. And we kind of teased it last week. It's like, they're the only game going. I mean, D-Zone, love them or hate them, I think they do a good job, as their, whatever their whole thing is, covering the state. I mean, if you're a key player, they're covering you. And they went to Corunna. They've never been to Corunna before. Probably will never go to Corunna again. Right. So it's just cool seeing all that stuff and kind of Corunna being the center of the football world for maybe the only time ever. Probably the only time ever, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's Ted, I'd be curious. I mean, you laid it out. And again, we were talking about it before we started recording. Yes, the Bauer twins get most of the headlines. Jaden Eddington obviously also, and rightfully so. Those are some incredible high school football players that are going to be playing at the next level. But it seems like, Ted, you've watched a lot of their games this year, basically all of them.
Yep.
Everyone does their job. And watching, you mentioned the D-Zone, Jared, they interviewed a bunch of the players after the game. And I forget who said it. Maybe it was Wyatt or Tarek, but they were saying everyone's doing their job. Mm-hmm. And, whether it's offensive line, whether it's even the kicking game, special teams, defense. I mean, it's one of those things where you can go up and down the roster, and I don't know if there's a weak spot. Sometimes you just have a super dominant run game, but maybe the passing game's not that good. Or, maybe the defense isn't that good. This is just a complete football team. And, it's all about matchups when it comes to the playoffs, and we know how that goes. But there's no reason with what they have that they aren't capable of making a run to Ford Field. And it's really cool to see.
And we can do this because we're not in the locker room. We're not coaches. We're not players, whatever. We can start taking a look at kind of the playoff bracket and how it's starting to lay out. I mean, Snooze to You's former 3PP guest, Snooze to You, his latest prediction has Corunna going east, which would avoid those big-time West Side schools that we talk about with Jason Hutton. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, we'll see Selection Sunday. It'll be very interesting. I know from my senior year, kind of a funny little factoid, Snooze to You picked every game right except Corunna because they're mid-Michigan. You never know which way they're going to go.
Right.
So it'll be a really fun day on Sunday to see which way they're going to go.
I'm trying to remember. So he was wrong with your team. Did you end up with a better bracket than what he predicted?
No. I mean, we went east, which led to Country Day in regional. Right. So wasn't the happiest, but right. Would have been nice to go west that year.
Yeah. Well, the district was okay for you. It was just that regional against Country Day. Before we leave the Cavaliers, I have been doing tons of research this season, even though I'm kind of halfway into it. But
come on, you're all the way in now.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm in.
You're more than you've ever been.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right about that, to tell you the truth. But this Corunna team, you hear all the comparisons. Are they the greatest team ever? Well, obviously, if they go 9-0 and go deep in the playoffs, they can definitely stake their claim. Right now, I mean, running clock all 8 games. They've outscored their opponents 376 to 45 in 8 games, right? So it's 47 offensively, 5.6 defensively. And, everybody always talks about the 76 team, and they were a fantastic team. They very well could have won the state championship. But if you look at the numbers, if you look just at numbers, they outscored their opponents 279 to 56. They had a couple close games. They beat Durand 12-7. And they beat Alma 14-7. So they had a couple close games in that season where this year's team has been unchallenged. Now, Jared, I know you really love it when I get into the Bob Cousy stuff. So let's go back. The final comment, let's go back a little deeper. We know about my dad's team and Bill Strigo and all that stuff. But the mid-1950s, guys, you may have forgot about it. You may not know about it. The 1955 team won the Class C state championship by pretty much every media outlet. They outscored their opponents in a 9-game season, 357 to 13. And they actually had won, starting with the 53 class, they won 33 consecutive games in that era. Dang. That's a dominant team right there. So if you're going to compare this team to any Corunna Cavalier team, I think you got to go back to 55.
That's pre Nick and Nice, right? He wasn't the coach of that team.
That's pre Nick and Nice. And a little sidebar in my research, 1962. bear with me, 1962, Corunna went 0-9. They were outscored 355 to 18.
Oh,
God.
So what did the superintendent of schools do? That was Ray Dennis at the
got Nick and
time.
Niece.
Put a little call out to New Lothrop and said, Nick, come on over here. We're going to give you a raise.
That's
And,
cool.
the next year, Corunna went 8-1. By the way, they had a couple, 2 or 3 pretty good players that transferred from New Lothrop to come to play for Nick at Corunna too. So got to do what you got to do, right?
So that school of choice was going all the way back then too for Corunna, right?
We're kind of underground though. Underground.
Yeah.
Remember at the beginning of the pod when we were talking about how the people who don't know who Corunna is are rooting for them to lose? I think they just threw their phone out their car. So a good thing we don't got to cater to that audience anymore.
Yeah, but you got to admit some pretty impressive stats. Now, going down the list real quick, like Chesaning pounded Lakeville. Who hasn't? 65 to nothing. Braden Florian, 378, 5 touchdowns.
Give me the Trace Tokar stats. What do you got?
You want that one?
Yeah.
The Marauders keep their playoff hopes alive. 34-6 over Mount Morris. Tokar, 100 yards, 2 scores.
That's like an Easter egg on the spot. Every week we get the Trace Tokar stats.
You got to get the guys that are doing the job. How about Owasso though? The Trojans, as I mentioned, the Stripes division took care of business. They beat Swartz Creek in the crossover, almost doubled up the score, 36-20. It was St. Patrick's night at Wilman. I spent some time writing that one, boys. Running back Hoyt Patrick ran for 230, had a couple touchdowns. His brother Liam had a rushing TD, passed for 2 more, and had 3 picks on defense. Pretty impressive win there by the Trojans.
In your opinion, before we get, I know we're trying to keep it tight, and we normally do.
Yep.
In your opinion, do you actually feel like this is a Owasso team that's kind of, for the first time in a long time, seems to be in the right direction?
Oh, 100%. I think Coach Tyner's got them going the right way. Hey, that Stripes division's really tough, as we know, and the one game I think they'd like to go back and maybe get a win was Clio. Their quarterback was out, so they had the backup quarterback in the game. They were ahead at halftime, but then let it fall apart in the second half. But that was a 4-win team for sure, and maybe 5. And I agree, they've turned the corner, I think. So the future's looking bright for the Trojans. A couple other quick scores: Morris over Vestaburg, no problem. 8-man football, 52-0. Joel Fisher, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think we talked about it off air, but Lakewood beat Perry 18-7. Lakewood got the first W of the season. They were winless and now 15-0 all time against the Ramblers. I don't know what it is, but they got their number, man.
They just have their number. And like we've talked about, that was Perry's chance to get to 6 wins for the first time in basically 30 years. They obviously still have a game, this week, so they still have a chance to get there. So it would be really cool to, not just because I have some nephews on the team, but it'd be really cool story locally to have, Perry's first trip ever to the playoffs.
It really would. Well, good luck to them in week 9. Well, that's it, boys. Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency. And we're going to talk a little college football and a little professional football right after this.
Success Group Mortgage and Servicing is Shiawassee County's only licensed mortgage broker, lender, and servicer. That means you get exclusive products not found anywhere else. If you are looking to purchase a home or refinance a home in Florida, Hawaii, or Michigan, stop what you're doing and give Success Group Mortgage and Servicing a call. 989-720-4380. That's 989-720-4380.